Today's top picks from Reuters Breakingviews: why Lonmin doesn't have to surrender to Xstrata yet, and how UBS has put 7 other banks in the fixed income firing line. Well, with me now to discuss these stories is Reuters Breakingviews assistant editor Chris Hughes. Chris, thanks as ever for joining us. Let's talk about Lonmin first of all. It doesn't have to surrender to Xstrata for the moment. Why not for starters? Why don't they have to give in?
Well, Lonmin's problem is that it needs this $800 million or so dollars of cash because it has had all these problems in South Africa, as we know, and so it's got some short-term pressure on its cash resources that this rights issue it's launching will alleviate. But the rights issue is fully underwritten, so Lonmin's going to get its cash. Xstrata can say, well, we're not going to subscribe to the rights we have for our 25% stake, which would in fact actually leave Xstrata diluted. Now, it's not, which would leave it with less influence. So if Xstrata actually wants to wage a kind of activist campaign and change Lonmin's management as it says it does, and it looks like Xstrata actually wants to have more of Lonmin, not less. It's not clear whether they really would follow through with this threat not to back the rights issue anyway. And as we say, Lonmin's going to get its cash. So in the short term, it looks like if you think of this as a succession of sort of battles between Lonmin and its lead shareholder, maybe on this first battle, actually Lonmin can sit tight, and it has actually indeed snubbed Xstrata. But I mean,
and that's the point though, because Lonmin doesn't have to surrender to Xstrata yet.
Yeah. I mean, but
quite an important
clearly,
word,
okay. So even if this rights issue gets done with Xstrata support or not, I mean, it doesn't look like Xstrata is going to give up. For a long time, Xstrata has coveted control of Lonmin.
But is this about asset swaps and all that sort of thing, or is it?
I wouldn't get too bogged down in that. I mean, what's actually happened is that Xstrata did make a proposal that it would give assets to Lonmin instead of actually subscribing cash for the rights issue, which would give it a very big stake. I mean, look, it's pretty clear that Xstrata wants to control Lonmin. Now, normally in that situation, the suitor would just make an offer to the target shareholders. Target shareholders would go, like the premium or don't like the premium, accept it or not. This isn't quite so.
So it looks like
simple.
they're trying to do it on the cheap, effectively.
Well, you always have that suspicion. Well, why do you, if you want to control it, why don't you just make the premium offer to buy out the other shareholders at X% above the prevailing share price, and let's be clean like that. And then see if Xstrata went about it that way, there'd be real pressure on the Lonmin board, which is already sort of on the back foot. They'd have something that they actually had to consider and potentially recommend. But obviously going about it this way, maybe they would get control more cheaply, but it's clearly a lot harder.
And meanwhile, Glencore's floating about in the background.
Well, meanwhile, obviously, Xstrata is subject to an offer from Glencore, which looks like it's going to go through later this month.
Okay, we'll move on to the other story we're talking about. UBS putting 7 banks in the FICC firing line. What you're basically putting here is that you're talking about the second-tier banks in the FICC business.
That's right. Well, after UBS said it was going to hack back at fixed income, commodities and currencies, mainly fixed income, what we saw is that the share price shot up. It's about 20% up now since that plan first emerged. I mean, that puts real pressure on the other subscale players in fixed income to do something. I mean, you can't pretend if you're management that that the market wouldn't cheer you doing the same thing. So the question is, who really is next? Now, in this second tier, who are the banks that don't basically the market is quite concentrated. You have 60% of the market in the hands of 6 players, and then the rest, more or less in the hands of these 7, who've got less than 5% market share each. There's Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse, Nomura, Crédit Agricole, SocGen, BNP Paribas, and as you say, RBS. Now, to varying degrees, I think you should expect to see them come under pressure over the next year to kind of do a UBS. Now, as of varying degrees, if you look at, say, Credit Suisse, they have actually already done a mini UBS. They've scaled back quite substantially, and they're able to make money. In the third quarter, they had quite a good fixed income result. So look, maybe that was a one-off, but right now you can say, okay, the pressure's off Credit Suisse. BNP Paribas this week had good results, pressure's off there. But
is that because of trading conditions?
Well, again, is it just because of trading conditions? Who knows? But probably right now they're probably not right in the firing line. But at the other end of the spectrum, Crédit Agricole, really bad results today. Shares down substantially. I mean, the pressure has to be on them, to really think, are we in these businesses really for the long term?
Finally, for the other side of it is partly to do with capital controls as well, because it frees up, or it's possible that it frees up more of the money because the capital controls are different, which is partly, I suppose, why UBS's share price has gone up. Yeah,
well, the regulation for the amount of capital you have to hold against fixed income has got a lot tougher now. Actually, Credit Suisse managed to somehow get around this problem by reducing the amount of risk-weighted assets in fixed income, and they're still making money. So it looks like you can possibly get around it, but it's still really hard. So we in our view, we think that Royal Bank of Scotland, Crédit Agricole, probably under the most pressure in that group, that second-tier group of 7, to kind of do a UBS. But we'll see what happens over the next year.
We certainly will. Chris, thank you very much indeed for that. Now, for more agenda-setting financial insight, watch our US Breaking Views show every day at 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 GMT. I'm Nigel Stevenson. This is Reuters.